Hello, everyone. I'm Sam Ekman of Gold Derby here with David West Reed, the Tony-nominated writer of & Juliet. Congratulations. This is your first ever Tony nomination. Were you watching the announcements? What was your reaction when you found out?
I was driving at the time, and a text came through my car speakers from my agent, and I was just trying to get some safely drive the car somewhere where I could call him and ask what happened. I thought they were going to be at 9. They ended up the show was announced at 8:30, so it was unexpected in a number of ways.
Hopefully safe driving as you got the
Yeah,
news.
I survived. I survived.
That's good. Well, this show & Juliet is so much fun. It's using it's a jukebox musical that uses the songs of Max Martin and all his hits. And as you're listening to these songs, trying to figure out this structure of the musical, how do you land on Shakespeare and Romeo and Juliet as the storytelling device for this?
Well, it was really great that the producers and Max didn't have an idea in mind, and they didn't have any guidelines for me other than we want to do something with Max's catalog that isn't the story of a boy band or the story of a young pop star or something that was similar to the original context, that they were really interested in exploring it from a completely new perspective. So I took the playlist. I was suffering from a concussion at the time, so I was supposed to be avoiding screens anyway. And I just listened to his songs over and over. And there were probably 250 songs on this list, so you could make 10 musicals out of
Wow.
Max's catalog. But there were so many songs, of course, being pop songs about young love and heartbreak. And I just was looking for something that would tie them together that wasn't going to be Max. And so the idea of the ultimate story of young love and heartbreak, Romeo and Juliet, came to mind. And then, if I was going to repurpose and reinvent Max's music, it also made sense to reinvent the story.
Yeah. Well, that 250 songs it's an insane amount of hits that he's written.
Yeah.
What is the curation process like then? It would feel daunting, I think, to me to try to whittle that down.
Yeah, and you feel some obligation to include some of the songs that are so iconic. It was also really open, Max was so open to what this could be that he wasn't prescriptive about what I needed to use or saying you couldn't use that. The only time he would say, don't use that, were if he didn't feel like he had contributed enough to the original song. There's, I remember it's a One Direction song that I pitched him at one point, and he's like, I don't remember writing on that song. So we didn't use that one. But other than that, it really was story focused. So I didn't want to use a song that didn't advance the story, and I didn't want to change any of the lyrics unless it was a pronoun or something like that. So trying to find the songs that best supported this new story and moved it forward and lyrically made sense, so that's how we got down to the list that we ultimately ended up with.
Yeah. And I think, book writing is a pretty specific skill that I think many people, like even outside of the industry, don't quite understand. Sometimes because it's not just a play, it's leading into a song. Was it difficult for you to find that way of leading into his songs because there are these pre-existing pop hits?
Yeah, I think some people, if you look at a musical, you think, well, the book writer only did this much actual writing. It's like, the number of pages of writing seems small, but it's everything in a musical has the kind of hit because you've got such different audiences coming in every night of all different generations, backgrounds. Sometimes English isn't even their first language. They've come to New York. They don't know what they're going to see. And so you're trying to find this universal musical language to bring people in. And there is a structure that has worked over time, and that if you're doing the job well, you're not really aware of that structure, but it's there. and it provides that backbone for the story. And so we kept talking in kind of musical theater terms about Max's music and saying, okay, so what's the I Want song? Well, it's I Want It That Way. It's very clear I Want song in this musical. But finding those key moments, the 11 o'clock number, the Act One finale, what which songs in Max's catalog were going to be those musical theater cornerstones for us. And as you say, it's not only putting the pieces in place, but going into and out of the songs in a way that feels seamless and that you're not constantly being taken out of the story by, oh, and here's that Katy Perry song, whatever it is. So my goal really was to make it seem like all of these songs were written for this musical, and that if you had somehow never heard a Max Martin song before, you could experience this as a wholly original thing.
Yeah. I think one thing the script does quite successfully is that there's not just a strong lead in Juliet, who's a really great complex character, but it takes the time to flesh out the supporting players, without losing the story thread and without making them feel, just tertiary. We get to care about them. Not every musical can do that. What is the process like behind that of managing all of those character arcs?
Right. I mean, it's a difficult balance when you're thinking how many characters arcs I juggle without diluting any of them, without feeling like they're truncated or not being fully serviced by the story. And but it is also very Shakespearean to have these multiple weddings at the end,
Sure. Yeah.
that the everyone has to kind of couple off and have their happy ending. But I think so. It's also a lot like Mamma Mia that way, which I think Mamma Mia deserves a ton of credit. I know it's not often thought of as, highbrow or, the high watermark necessarily for musical theater, but I love the show, and so does our director Luke Shepard, and we talked a lot about um, how how they achieve that balance with multiple love stories in that show. Um, and I also just like the opportunity of exploring this theme of starting over from different perspectives, including the older couple or the queer couple or whatever it is. That there should be a way for everyone in the audience to find themselves in the show. That was a big goal for me.
Yeah. I Have you been in the like in the audience often? Because there, I think, for me, when I was watching it, the audience is full of a lot of young people who are really responding to, I think, the just sheer amount of diversity on stage. Have you witnessed that in the audience?
Yeah, I mean, I've been lucky enough to see the show a lot of times now. We started in Manchester, then London, then Toronto, then Broadway, and every time, I've seen it probably 30 or 40 times with an audience. So I've definitely experienced the joy of sitting in the theater with people who are embracing the cast on stage. And it is something that's been really important to our creative and producing team to have all diversity of all kinds in our cast. And even in the Australian cast, diversity there means something different. There are a number of Aboriginal and Indigenous actors in that cast, which is really important. And so it is a very inclusive show. Max's music is very inclusive and celebrated all over the world. And so, we really did want to build this as something that could bring people together.
And you're mentioning those other productions. Musicals like this take a very long time to develop and live all over the world. Were there any huge changes? Did you have to continually cut or adjust as its life progressed?
Well, it was an unusual process in that I'm Canadian. I live in America. I was writing originally thinking the musical was going to be in America first, and then we started out in London. And so I did kind of add some Britishisms, and I feel like the humor became more British, although there is a Canadian British common sensibility. And then coming back here, I had to re-Americanize a few of the lines. Um, so there were changes with every stage of development and every workshop and every new production up until Broadway. But the crux of the story has remained the same, and it has to kind of be able to connect in all different countries and to endure because for a musical to be successful, it also has to run for a certain length of time. And so that was something I was always thinking about too, is how do I make this uh, more, I don't want to say timeless because I don't think it'll run forever, but at least something that won't feel so timely that you can't appreciate it down the road. I mean, it's been 7 years since I started working on it. So,
Wow.
yeah.
And those 7 years, I believe this is the first time you've worked on a jukebox musical. Is that correct?
This is the
So,
first time I've worked on a musical at all. So, yeah.
well, how does that compare then in terms of, you spending 7 years on something? What does that process feel like in comparison to a play or a TV series?
Well, it's really special in that you go through so much in your own life in the process of making this one thing and the show becomes the constant. And for me, it was a constant source of joy that, from the time I started to where I am now, there have been a lot of ups and downs and big life changes, but to be able to keep coming back to the show with a group of people that I love working with. And there's nothing better than being in a rehearsal room where people are singing and dancing. As much as I love working in television, and I really do, and working on straight plays, which are fun and their own challenge, the joy of making music together is something that's really special.
Yeah. Well, your current TV project is the Big Door Prize, which is, I think, another maybe unexpected. That's an adaptation, but a lot of people wouldn't read a novel and think, "Oh, this could be stretched out into a series." What goes into your mind to say, "Oh, here's how I'm going to do this as a long form storytelling"?
Right. Well, I mean, the original book, The Big Door Prize by Emma Walsh, had this amazing concept. What if there was a machine that for $2 could tell you your life's potential? What would you do with that information? And the book has a great cast of characters and explores it in a number of different ways. But the concept itself is so juicy, and there's so many different ways you could take it that aren't explored in the book. That to me, that's the perfect kind of source material where there's room to grow. That you don't, in a way, you don't want something that feels like uh, it's already complete. That it has to be kind of open ended. And the book obviously has a specific ending, and we, as a writer's room, had to open that up and expand the mysteries and the mythology of this whole thing. So, I've been really enjoying. We've just finished our second season, shooting our second season of the show, and it just keeps expanding, and the mysteries just get deeper. And it's also a show about second chances in a way,
Mm.
because everyone in the town of Deerfield who experiences this machine that can tell you your life's potential, they're all thinking about, well, what is my life's potential? What did I think it was going to be? Where did I think I was going to be? Could I still change, at this point? And it's a book that I read at the beginning of the pandemic, which only became more timely and prescient. This idea of starting over, and what's that secret ambition or passion or dream that you've never explored. So there's definitely a parallel between the Big Door Prize and Juliet.
Well, speaking of the pandemic, I have to touch on your work with Schitt's Creek because I think that's a show that I know got me through the pandemic, and I think that's a common experience, a universal experience for many people. Um, and you all had this epic, pretty unprecedented and rare sweep at the Emmys. What did that?
Right.
What was your favorite? Because that really doesn't happen quite often. What was your favorite memory from that experience?
I mean, that was such a weird one because it was on Zoom, and so it only added to to how surreal it was. But I talk about it a lot because we made the show for about 4 years where it felt like no one was really watching, or if someone did watch, we'd all get excited. One celebrity would say something about it. I'm like, can you believe it? Someone watched the show. But I think it was a lesson for me in just making something that you enjoy and not thinking about awards or where it could go. I mean, we shot that show very close to where I grew up in a small town outside of Toronto, and it was we were in a kind of bubble for a long time, and then 4 seasons of zero Emmy nominations. Fifth season, I think the show got three, and then it was 15 or something
Mm.
like that, and swept the acting category. It's just crazy. So, but I think my big takeaway is that we were never looking for that. It was just trying to make a show that we all enjoyed making together.
Well, it's very special, and you have another special project that a lot of people are enjoying with Anne Juliet. So, congratulations! Thank you for sitting down with me, and for everyone who's out there watching, subscribe to Gold Derby. Stick with us for the rest of this season. David, thank you so much.
Thank you, Sam. It's been great talking to you.